Hello everyone and welcome to another video, and also welcome to my desk. I don't think we've ever actually filmed from this particular angle before. You can see my bookcase in the background, which is quite nice. Yeah, today we're going to be tier ranking all of the books I've read so far this year. Now I've read around 25 books so far. I was going really well, and then I had a bit of a reading slump in August and this month. So yeah, literally just going to go through all the books I've read so far this year and talk about them and put them in order of which ones my favorite are. Now if you haven't watched any of these videos before, I'm just going to explain the super obvious here. Obviously S tier is the best tier of books, and then A, B, C, and D being the worst. So beginning with Spinning Silver, this book was really good. A really good high fantasy, fairy tale, very snowy. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in A tier. I thought it was really good. The next book is a reread, which was Picture of Dorian Gray. I absolutely, there we go. I absolutely love this story. It is a gothic story which was published in the late 1800s, I think, by Oscar Wilde. It is a book about a young man who is really beautiful, and so as Dorian Gray starts to do really bad things, the portrait starts taking on the sort of ugliness of his soul. Definitely at least A tier. It's probably S tier for me just because it's that good of a book. The next one was also a reread, and it is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is a brilliant YA story, and I went back and I reread it, and it sort of just reminded me of how much of a strong YA book this is. I love Peter. He's still my favorite. Yeah, just a really good book, and so influential for the way that YA heroines ended up acting after this book. The next one is this one, which is Educated by Tara Westover. This is a memoir about a young woman who grew up in sort of rural America to a very religious family. The father of the family was very controlling. He didn't let his kids go to school. He didn't let them go to the doctors. And this is effectively a story about this young woman's fight for education. And it's sort of a story about how she pulled herself out of this highly abusive situation. I loved every part of this book. I'm gonna put this in S tier. I'm putting it above The Picture of Dorian Gray. Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is a really good book as well. I gave it 3 stars when I read it initially, but I think it's grown on me in hindsight. It was a really good short book, and I think it would be an A. This is difficult. Okay, no, it's A tier. The reason why this book is so strong for me, the book is about a woman in her 30s who works in a convenience store, and sort of the societal expectations that are placed on her to start a family and have a normal life and whatever. What made this book really strong, I think, for me was the perspective of the main character, who I don't believe was neuronormative. I found her perspective really unique, and I really enjoyed it for that reason. I wish it was longer. It just felt way too short, so it's that one's sort of in between A and B tier, just because I felt the story could have been more fleshed out. It's a really short novel. Okay, the next one was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Oh, when I said my opinion about, where is it? Here. When I said my opinion about this book, I think I upset a lot of people, because I think a lot of people expected me to absolutely love this book. For this one I also listened to the audio version, and I didn't really get into the book very much. I think this is a very this is a very setting centric book. And I am very much a person who's always going to connect a lot more with character, so that's just sort of a personal taste thing. I thought this, I really enjoyed the premise of the story. I really enjoyed the world building. I thought the setting was so strong. I really genuinely think I would have liked this book more if I had have read the physical version of it, because listening to the audio version I just couldn't get into the story. But that being said, it was still a good book. I still enjoyed it, so B tier. Okay, is this one by Stephen Fry. This is Heroes. Pretty much just a classical mythology retelling. I thought it was good. I thought it was good. It was exactly what it said on the tin. Okay, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Right. Here's the weird thing. I think The Night Circus is a better book, but I enjoyed A Court of Thorns and Roses more. Oh, did I? I think, okay. I had so many problems with A Court of Thorns and Roses. Like, I had problems with the characterization. I felt like some of the things were tropey, some of the things I didn't enjoy so much. But sort of at like the 3/4 mark of this story, I got really, really sucked into the plot, and I really wanted to find out what happens next. The sort of ending of this book, there was something, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but the fundamental climax of this story was a cliche that was so cliche that I just like laughed. It was really funny. So yeah, The Night Circus was definitively a better book. I thought A Court of Thorns and Roses was just a really fun ride. Does it deserve to be C tier? Like, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was an amazing book, but I enjoyed it. This is really hard. I find it really, really hard to be super critical about books. Like, I never give 2 and 1 star reviews. Like, I will just tend to like not review a book on Goodreads if I think it's a 1 star, because I don't want to be mean. But again, I thought like the quality level of these two were a lot higher. So I look, that's going to be there tentatively. I don't know if it's going to stay there. I feel really bad for putting it in C tier because I feel like maybe it's a B. Okay, we're putting it in B tier. Okay, moving on. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. This was a book I got for my birthday from a friend. This friend of mine picked really, really well. I loved this story. It's about a sort of a young girl who is in Amsterdam. She has magical powers. It's very like gothic. There are seraphs. Seraphs? That can't be the word. And like other worlds and doorways to other worlds. It was really cool. A tier, definitely A tier. Life as we knew it. This is the only, like, just definitively, I didn't enjoy this book. Normally, if a book is like a 1 star book for me, I will just not finish it. Like, there's so many books this year that I just like didn't finish because I hated them from the outset. This one I pushed through because I was really sucked into the story. I wanted to know what happened. But just the things that kept happening in this book just frustrated me. Pretty much the premise of this book is that an asteroid is coming towards the Earth, misses the Earth, hits the moon. The moon gets pushed closer to the Earth, which massively affects like tidal waves and volcanoes. But it was just like, I started looking into like the science behind this book, and apparently it was just like completely unrealistic that this would ever happen, which like I would be more fine with because like it's a book, suspension of disbelief and whatever. But what really, really frustrated me with this book was the main character. She's a 16-year-old girl who's grown up in the US. It's an individualistic culture, right? She would have been taught her whole life to put herself first, to behave in this certain way. The end of the world is coming because nature has set itself on fire. And all of a sudden, she just accepts that, like, her brothers are supposed to get more food than her. And, like, they're more likely to survive because they're boys. And, like, all of this stuff. And, like, she does sports. She's smart. She's resourceful. She's proven that throughout the story. But her younger brother, she just accepts that he should have all of the food and that he's more likely to live. And so she kind of gives up a little bit and puts him first, and it felt so unrealistic. It just felt like she was doing it just because she was a girl, and it frustrated the hell out of me. Like, I was so fed up with this. So yeah, that's why it's D tier, because I really, really hated that part of the story, because I'm like, what 16-year-old who's grown up being independent and individualistic in America, like, unless you were in a family structure where you were like consistently taught to do that your whole life, why would you just roll over and accept that you're not the one who's gonna live? Like, why would you just be like, oh yeah, my brother's a boy, so he's gonna be the one who lives here, I'll give him all my food? Like, I don't get it. It really, really frustrated me. Like, yeah. Okay, Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter. S tier, because it's Angela. This is one of the weaker Angela Carter novels I've read. I've liked her other stories better, but it was still beautiful and brilliantly written. Okay, the next one is Six of Crows I loved this so, so very much. And I was a little bit surprised by how much I loved it, because like YA fantasy can be a little bit hit or miss for me. Like fantasy is by far my favorite genre ever, but I'm very, very, very picky. I sort of like go into like these really, really popular books and I just like get a bit nervous because I really want to love them. But I loved this. I thought it was so good. There were a few things, oh, actually, okay, A tier, because my only like big criticism with this one was that I wished it was an adult fantasy. Like I wished that Leigh Bardugo had have like aged up the protagonists by like 3 or 4 years, and then I would have found it more believable. Because like all the content just like it pretty much felt like adult fantasy. It was just that the main characters had the ages of YA protagonists, so I know why it's a YA fantasy. I know that it is like it's a marketing category and all this stuff, but I wish the protagonists had been aged up just a little bit. Yeah, if you don't know, Six of Crows is pretty much like fantasy heist story. It's 6 people. Their leader is Kaz Brecker, who is like emotionally scarred and also one of my favorite people ever. I love Inej. I love her so much. Those two, I love them. Yeah, brilliant books. I love them so much. I'm going to stop spinning in my chair. I'm really having fun sitting in here while filming. Okay, next one, The Priory of the Orange Tree. I think in terms of like the book's strength, I think it's a really, really strong book. I think that Samantha Shannon did exactly what she wanted to do with this book. It is epic fantasy. It is enormous. This is like an 800-page book. I love it very much. It's brilliant. It's loosely inspired by the myth of George and the Dragon. It's told from 4 perspectives. It's set in like this sort of like medieval style world. It's a brilliant world. The world building is just amazing in the story. It's such an expansive world that Samantha Shannon has created. Like I love it so much. The thing that sort of stops this from being S tier for me though, this book, was that just the pacing for my tastes were a little bit off. Like I felt like it took way too long for the story to really get going and for it to really suck me in, and then I felt like at the end the sort of climax of the story was a bit too long. Coraline, S tier, just excellent. Neil Gaiman, so brilliant and beautiful. I love the story. Crooked Kingdom, this is the follow-up story. I didn't love this quite as much as Six of Crows. Still brilliant, still loved it. Just wasn't like, I'm gonna put it at the end of A tier. Girl, Woman, Other. Also S tier, just an amazing story. Won the Man Booker Prize for 2019. It was a dual win between her and Margaret Atwood's The Testaments. Howl's Moving Castle, top of S tier. Like there's no question about this. This is like one of my favorite books of all time. Again, another book I've reread this year. I will reread this book forever and ever and ever. The next one is So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Olu. This, for what the book wanted to be, I thought it was really strong. It like essentially is just a book that talks about race and it talks about privilege. For me, it's a B tier book because it didn't really go in depth into stuff that like I hadn't already heard about. Like it was a good bit of context. I really appreciated reading this author's perspective. It's a book for people who just want to deepen their understanding into discussions about race. Okay, the next one, Pachinko. S tier. I love this book so much. Like this is probably my favorite book I've read so far this year. Like Howl's Moving Castle isn't really fair because that's a reread. Like I love that book, but Pachinko is devastating and amazing. Save the Cat writes a novel. C tier. I thought it was fine. I read this one because I was listening to a podcast in which Leigh Bardugo speaks about a book called Save the Cat, which is like a really, really well-known book on screenwriting. It talks about like structures and things for screenplays. This book is like that book, but it's very specifically written for novels. I thought it was fine. Peace is Every Step. This one is also going to be in C tier. To be honest, like I thought it was good. I really needed to listen to it at the time because I was feeling a bit anxious and stressed, and this is a book about mindfulness. This book is by Thich Nhat Hanh. I've read The Miracle of Mindfulness by him before. The Performance of Self in Everyday Life by Irving Goffman. Same sort of thing. I have been wanting to read this book since I studied anthropology in university. Just thought it was really interesting. This book is quite long-winded, a bit outdated, but otherwise reasonably interesting. Maybe I'll put it below Pieces Every Step. Okay, Miyazaki World, A Life in Art by Susan Napier. This level, okay, if we're talking about enjoyment, maybe I enjoyed The Night Circus more than Do You Want to Talk About Race? Like, maybe I'd put this... It's so challenging because like this is a really important book, so I don't want to like rank it low because I don't want to say like, oh, it's not a good book to read. It's a very good book to read, but just in terms of like my enjoyment, maybe it's C tier. Then maybe Miyazaki World, A Life in Art. I think I'm seeing a really specific like trend here, is that the books that like I thought like they were good but they weren't like, you know, my favorite books in the world are generally going to be like self-help books and non-fiction books. I think I'm a bit biased in that all the books I really love are going to be fiction books, to the exclusion of Educated, which was just so good. And next one, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. But interestingly, I didn't enjoy it as much this time around when I read it. Right, and the last one, which is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I finished reading this morning, so hopefully I don't have any like response bias for this one because I literally just finished it. I thought it was great. I think Neil Gaiman is stronger at middle grade than he is at adult fantasy, and that's like just my opinion. There are a couple little bits like where I felt like it was dragging. I felt like the story was like just meandering a little bit for me. Oh, where am I gonna put it? Like, it's definitely an A tier book, this one. Before The Bell Jar. Okay. Okay, so I think we're done. This is my tier ranked list of all the books I've read so far this year. We have like 25 books here that I've put in order. I feel like I've put like a disproportionate amount of books in A tier, like more books than should realistically go in like the A and S tier. But to be fair, I put a lot of research in before I pick up a book. Like I put a lot of effort in to making sure it's going to be a book I really, really like before I start reading it. Again, didn't work with Life as We Knew It, but never mind. And also I like really struggle to give books low ratings because if I hate a book, I'm generally not going to finish it, and so like I don't feel like I can give it a rating because if I haven't finished it, then I haven't like read the whole thing, and like I won't rate it. And B, you know, someone put a lot of work into these stories. It takes a lot to write a novel. So yeah, this is where we're at. This is my tier list of all the books I've read so far this year. Please let me know what you guys thought of this video. Did you enjoy this tier ranking video? Please let me know, and maybe I'll look at making some more in the future if this is the type of thing that you guys want to see from me. I've really enjoyed filming this video sitting in this chair because it means I can just like swivel around all the time. But yeah, thank you guys so very much for watching. Take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.